We are live and ready to go.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the July meeting of the Professional Standards Teacher Education Board. I hope everybody is having a wonderful summer. And right off the bat, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your summer to join us for a July meeting. We don't usually have a July meeting, but we had quite a bit on the agenda, so we decided to go ahead and meet today. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully we'll move through the meeting. We might be able to end just a little bit earlier, definitely end on time. So how's that? All right, so the first thing is we have call to order, recognition of guests. Is there anybody who is in the audience right now that should be recognized as a guest?
We do have one individual giving public comment, Ms. Rachel McGrain.
All right, and seeing no other guests to be introduced, then we'll go directly to public comment. All right, Ms. McGrain, feel free to come off mic and you may address the board. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. My name is Rachel McGrain, and I'm the Executive Director at Arts Education in Maryland Schools, a nonprofit committed to ensuring that all students in Maryland have access to high-quality arts education so that they can thrive in a healthy society. I first want to thank this board and the MSDE staff for all the deep and thoughtful work you've done on the Fine Arts Licensure Pathway conversation. It has really been a truly energizing experience to see the entirety of this process so far, from identifying an issue and bringing it forth through public comment to participating in the work group and watching the rich conversation this board had last month on the recommendations. I would first like to comment on the discussion around course requirements for the possible new pathway. Last meeting, this board was heading back towards a 21 credit requirement because of adding in classroom management from the arts pathway to the alternate pathway. However, there was no discussion around the courses in the alternate pathway recommendation that were not in the arts pathway recommendation. And the arts work group did have a robust conversation about literacy in the content area and decided not to include it because while important, we felt it was not critical to getting a strong start as an arts teacher. Part of your conversation last month was also around figuring out what is critical for getting started as an effective teacher. And the consensus among the fine arts work group was that the literacy in the content area is not as critical as the other courses, specifically for the arts. Further, disciplinary literacy courses specifically in the arts aren't widely accessible. So many teachers end up taking literacy courses for areas outside their content area instead, which again, may not be the best use of time for a beginning arts teacher. I also want to add a quick validation around the challenge of the and or conversation for prospects coming in with a bachelor's degree outside of the content area. Several members of the fine arts group also have concerns around the pathway in which a candidate holds a BA outside of the content area and passes a content test. One primary concern is that this does not demonstrate strong enough content knowledge. For example, in this scenario, a conditionally licensed teacher could be placed in a studio arts classroom without any studio experience or knowledge. Instances like this have happened, and they do put a strain on the limited support resources in districts. So while we want this pathway to be accessible, we also do want to ensure that it doesn't forgo content expertise. Again, thank you for your responsiveness and thoughtful consideration of this complex issue.
All right, thank you, Ms. McGrain. We certainly do appreciate that. Did you have your comments also in writing that you wanted to pass along?
I'm happy to email what I just said. I do have it out in writing, so I can share that as well.
Okay, that would be great. If you could send that to Ms. Meadows, that would be wonderful, and she can send it out.
Absolutely.
And your timing is perfect since that's coming up again today for discussion. So we really do appreciate all the input. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep, and thanks again for the acknowledgement of all the work that's been done on this. It's great to finally get this to the point where we can begin to discuss it. So thanks so much for being with us today. We appreciate your comments. All right, anything else for public comment? I believe we only had one, correct, Kelly? All right, that sounds good. All right, we will now go to the state board update if we're ready for that. Hannah, are you ready? Are you there?
I am filling in for Hannah today, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hans. Go right ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Just wanted to provide you a quick update from our June 24th meeting of the state board. The board took several actions at that meeting. The first of which the state board voted to adopt a memorandum of understanding with the Accountability and Implementation Board, which the AIB also adopted 2 days later following the state board meeting. This document identifies clear roles and responsibilities for both the state board and the AIB in the blueprint implementation process and lays out how the boards will share information with one another moving forward. And you can find the link for that in the summary of actions that hopefully I provided to Kelly, and if I didn't, I will after today's meeting. Um, After a lengthy review process and significant committee work, the state board adopted revised social studies standards at its most recent meeting. These revised standards come several years after the last revision and seek to align with national best practices. The special education work group submitted its final report to the state board with a series of 27 recommendations for MSDE and the state board to consider and prioritize, and that work will continue in the coming months and year. The state board granted permission to repeal and replace COMAR 13A0504, which is library media services. These regulations largely carry out the requirements from the Freedom to Read Act, which provides guardrails around the exclusion or removal of materials from school libraries for very specific reasons. In addition, the regulations add different competencies around digital literacy and citizenship. So all students will receive instruction on these concepts through their school library media programs. The state board granted permission to publish or republish amendments to COMAR 13A0701. This is the Comprehensive Teacher Induction Program. These were revised following the public comment period to add further clarity around the aggregate length of mentoring minutes per marking period, as well as to address that professional learning may align with local initiatives. There were a couple other small changes that I'll defer to Kelly on if anyone has specific questions. Finally, the state board granted permission to adopt emergency regulations that would slightly alter the process for the state superintendent to issue a stay of a local school board decision. In COMAR currently, the stay can only last for a maximum of 60 days. This emergency regulation adds clarity that a stay may remain in place for the duration of any appeal to the local or the state board until that appeal has concluded. The state board will meet for 2 days in July. It will meet on July 29th and 30th with a half-day meeting on July 30th. That'll be particularly around budget issues, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you very much for the summary. And don't forget, this was also sent out along with hyperlinks and so forth, so you got a copy of that was in the packet that Kelly sent out. Let's open it up to any questions, comments. And thank you again, Zachary, for a great presentation. We appreciate that. All right, questions, comments? All right, hearing none, we will move on. Thank you again for being with us. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, and the next thing we have is approval of May and June minutes. Kelly, can you walk us through that?
Sure. Unfortunately, we did not have the May minutes during our June meeting, so both of them were presented this time around. And if anyone has or sees any issues or errors, please let us know.
I was not present at the May 2nd meeting.
All right, any other changes? All right, I'll give you a little bit of time to go ahead and look through those.
Good morning. I'm pretty sure I was in attendance.
Which meeting, Dr.
I'm
Shockley?
looking at, I see two. Hold on, let me go back and see. This is the draft meeting for May 2nd. For the meeting dated June 5th, it's showing I am in attendance, and for the one dated May 2nd, it's saying that I wasn't, but I don't think I missed the April meeting. I'm pretty sure I was there.
This is Dr. Taylor. I do not believe I was at the June meeting.
That's correct.
And this is Amy Poirier. I was absent for both May and June.
Hi, this is Dion Kirby. I was present for the June meeting.
All right, anyone else? This kind of reminds me of those days when I take attendance and you get 12 different interruptions and so forth. And then the attendance lady calls and says, you missed like 5 people. Think, how did that happen? So easy to do. All right, anybody else?
Yeah, I had a question. Did we discuss, I think we have in the minutes here 18 credits, but I think we had talked about the possibility of needing to expand to 21 credits for the alternative licensure pathways. And I'm just wondering if that should be reflected. Yeah, this is in the June minutes I'm talking about, sorry. On page 3.
And I agree with you. If my memory serves correct, yes, we did talk about going up to 21. That was also in our public comment today too. So yep, we might want to add a line about that. And then Dr. Kirby had also put was present in person for May and present virtual for June. And that's perfectly fine. As we go forward, let's go ahead and not use the chat because that's a little bit hard to try and monitor both at the same time. So just feel free to come off mic and it's okay. You don't have to be recognized. We've got a pretty small group today. So whenever you can jump in, just jump in. All right. Kelly, did you get a chance to get those down? I think this is also recorded so you can go back and look. Do we need to make those changes and bring them back, or are we okay to go ahead and just adopt those with the changes that we've discussed? Sean, can I do that? Okay. Is it okay if I put them both together?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. So I will entertain a motion for the approval of the May and June minutes. If you'll be happy to entertain a motion, just come off mic.
Motion to approve.
All right. Ms. Stanton with a motion to approve. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Nikki, I'll be the second.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I did skip that, didn't I? All right. So Nikki is the second. Thank you for keeping me honest. All right. So Ms. Woodward seconds. Any further discussion? All right. You can signify by raising a hand or saying aye. All right. Any abstentions? Any opposed? All right. Ms. Bischoff, you abstain. And we'll do an introduction here in just a second. All right, so we have one abstention. Otherwise, the motion carries, and we now have those 2 months, May and June, are now approved. All right, thank you all. All right, so now we go to the communications update. And Ms. Bischoff, you are new to the board. This is your first meeting, is that correct?
I am, yes. Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Please do introduction.
So I have been at Frostburg State for, oh my gosh, I think I'm coming up on my 9th year. I used to be a high school chemistry teacher in Garrett County, and I coordinate the MAT secondary program. So yeah, it's been a ride. So again, thanks for having me. I love teacher prep. I love assessment. So I'm happy to be in the right place. Thank you.
All right, excellent. And you're representing who on the board? What group?
Hold up, mate.
Mate. Okay, great. And forgive me for not doing introductions right at the beginning. I was looking around and sometimes I see new people and I'm like, are they here as a guest or whatever? So we appreciate you being on the board and thanks for waiting. When we are in person next month, we'll start the meeting just by going around and doing introductions so you can get a better sense of who we are. And I think that's a little bit easier done in person than it is probably online. So if you don't mind waiting for that, we'll do formal introductions at our next meeting. Is that okay? All right, and there's no warm-up period. Jump right in. Feel free to ask questions, give comment. You just right off the bat, just make yourself at home and contribute any way you'd like. All right, welcome to the board. All right, so the next part, we're going to COMAR 13A120505, which is administrator. We've been working on this for a while, and this is now up for adoption. As you remember, we've had work groups that have been working on this for quite a while. This went out for publication. It's my understanding, Kelly, based on the transmittal memo, that we got no feedback on this. So I think that was actually pretty good. That's usually indicative that we got it right. At least I hope so. Kelly, can you walk us through that? Because we are asking to adopt today. So just remind us what's in there and so forth, especially for anybody who might not have been here for that whole process.
Absolutely. And I agree. Usually no news is good news. We did have a licensure specialist reach out just to ask questions from one of our larger counties, and once answered, was completely on board. So that was also a good indication. So just as a reminder, as Darren shared, this work has been going on for some time. We brought together a statewide work group, which was made up of the Maryland Association of Elementary and Secondary School Principals, the Maryland Association of College Teacher Education, MSEA, BTU, Maryland Association of School Personnel Administrators. There was representation from, of course, this board, from the Accountability and Implementation staff, and several LEAs. So we met between May and October of last year, and the recommended amendments in large buckets are: one, we're eliminating the two-tier structure. So currently there's the administrator 1 and the administrator 2 licensure areas. The 1 allows you to be an assistant principal and a supervisor of instruction, and the 2 allows you to serve as a principal. So eliminating that two-tier structure and moving forward, if adopted, this administrator license will allow an individual to serve in all of those roles. Second, we eliminated the assessment requirement, which is currently the ETS SLLA, or School Leaders Licensure Assessment, for specific type of candidates. And those are the candidates who go through a Maryland-approved administrator licensure program, or who demonstrate 5 years of effective performance as a principal in another state. So again, that assessment is required for some pathways, but no longer required for those 2 specific pathways. And then finally modified the transcript analysis route or pathway to licensure to include culturally responsive leadership coursework, and then tweaking a little bit of the additional coursework, and also supporting instructional improvement and defining the minimum number of practicum hours. So those are the big changes to this regulation. And because so much of it was changed, it is a repeal and replace. So today we are here before you to request that the Professional Standards and Teacher Education Board grant permission to adopt this regulation as is. If granted, it will go to the State Board of Education during their July meeting. And at this point, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, any questions?
Yes.
Discussion points? Go ahead, Dr. Shockley.
Yes, just a reminder, Kelly, I think we discussed this before, but there are, based on I believe the public comment, the regulations now as they stand are inclusive of opportunities for individuals who are earning licensure from out of state. I just wanted to mention that as a part of the revisions for the record, for many reasons, because that came up in my stakeholder group, given our proximities to the District of Columbia, Virginia, Pennsylvania, et cetera. So I just wanted to bring that forward, as well as where the coursework can be earned. And so I just wanted to also note that it just reads IHE, and the Maryland approved special education coursework is mentioned. And I wanted to assure and make sure that is also how you are reading the document as it stands, that the coursework, the 18 credits that are there, and at the beginning of the document, read IHE. It doesn't say a Maryland IHE, just an IHE, including the special education coursework that reads 3 hours of special education in Maryland. So I'm only reiterating it for the stakeholder groups, and also just to honor the work that has happened in this iteration. So I want to make sure I understand that correctly. Thank you.
So I want to make sure I understand your question. So I think I do. So the 3 semester hours or state approved CPD credits and special education coursework can be taken inside of Maryland, outside of Maryland, and the same for the 18 semester hours of graduate coursework. If the individual is going through the transcript analysis pathway, again, that coursework can be taken at any accredited institution of higher education. It does not need to be in Maryland. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Josh Davidson, I also had a quick question. So if someone currently holds just an admin 1, but not an admin 2, do they have to follow the previous COMAR regulations, or are they now included in the new regulations? So they could pursue basically like a principalship with the current admin certificate that they have?
That's a great question. So once effective, these regulations will replace the old requirements. So for instance, let's say you've graduated from a Maryland approved administrator preparation program and you only have the admin 1 credential because you just never took the SLLA. That individual can immediately apply for the new administrator endorsement, and that new administrator endorsement drops the 1 off of it basically, and that would allow that individual to apply for a principalship.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, any other questions? All right, any additional comments? You know, if you look at the transmittal memo and you see the different groups that were represented on the work group, I just want to, again, give a word of thanks to all of the people who participated in writing this. I know there were a number of meetings, a lot of stuff got hashed out. There were some pretty rich discussions and so forth. And I think the fact, Kelly, that you put together a group that was so representative of a variety of different interests is what got us to this place, to the point where I think we got it right. So I really do appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into, one, just putting the groups together, because I think you did a great job with that. Everybody's viewpoint was represented here. And I think that's how you get good COMAR. All right. One more time. Any other discussion, questions, comments, joys, or concerns about this? All right. Well, then I will entertain a motion to adopt COMAR 13A120505 Administrator Licensure.
Darren, this is Dr. Taylor. I so move.
All right, so moved by Dr. Taylor. Do we have a second?
Second.
And that was seconded by Dr. Shockley. Okay, I have to wait to see which which block lights green if they don't stay up very long. All right, so we have a second by Dr. Shockley. All right, one more time. Any further discussion on this? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye or just raising your hand.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? And are there any abstentions to this? All right, so moved. So we have adoption of COMAR 13A120505. Excellent work. And that will now go on to the State Board of Education. I'm very proud of that. A lot of work went into that. You should all be proud. All right, excellent job. All right, so we are moving very quickly on to the next agenda item, and that is the alternative licensure pathway recommendations. This is for discussion only, and you have a couple of documents. As you recall, we had sort of 2 different work group recommendations on how we deal with the arts. And the board, I'm not going to say we were uncomfortable with it, but the board, I think, had some concerns about each of those recommendations. And when we last left, Kelly said that she would go back and sort of put together some potential draft COMAR that might address some of those concerns. And hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. So you've got 2 documents you might want to pull up. One is the draft of the COMAR, and it looks like this. And I realize that's a little hard to see on camera, but you'll see that going out. And then also, and I love this, there's also a chart that just shows the recommendations in chart form. And Kelly, you are so good at always doing that. You always bring us charts and the long form, so it's really good at helping us organize in our head what we're doing. Excellent teaching, if you ask me. All right, so I'll give you a second to make sure you got those 2 documents up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Kelly to sort of walk us through, one, any background that you have on this, if you want to bring us up to speed on anything that I didn't, and then just sort of walk us through on what the suggestions are, and then we'll open it up for some discussion.
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Ms. Fitzpatrick, the Director of Licensure.
Good morning, everyone. So again, thank you. What I'll do is I am going to walk through the requirements and then give a little background about what Kelly and I discussed and what was taken back to the team. But definitely have both of the documents in front of you, but I'm going to focus on the charts a little bit easier to kind of process the requirements and the changes that we made with the charts. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just in case you do not. Oh, I don't have the ability to share. So Kelly, do you? Okay, thank you.
Jeff, can you please enable access to share for both Sophia and myself?
So while we're doing that, I would just preface this by revisiting some of the things that we had discussed in the June meeting. So first and foremost, I want to thank Ms. McGrain for coming today and providing public comment. The concerns that she expressed were expressed after we concluded the work group. And so the first of that concern is around the content requirements. And an individual with a bachelor's degree in any field or related field just completing the content assessment. The work group members were not comfortable with that, and we did receive that feedback. And so there was a change that was made there. And so I will get there once I go through the content, but we did actually pair the assessment with occupational experience and a bachelor's degree or higher, so that those individuals not only have the degree, they also are able to submit a passing score on that content assessment, and that occupational experience would be evidence that that content knowledge is applicable. They know how to apply that in their field. Again, that would be for visual arts, dance, music, and theater. The other concern that Ms. McGrain elevated was the literacy in the content area. We had a very robust conversation about that in that work group. And so initially that was not a part of the recommendations, but was a part of the considerations that Kelly and I brought to the board last month to include literacy in the content area, because those courses that are offered throughout the state do address all content areas. And unfortunately, with what is offered right now, we don't have any specific methods or literacy in the content area courses that are specific to fine arts. And so that is the reason that we did that. And we also wanted to align the two transcript analysis professional coursework, the requirements there. In addition, there was a request to increase the professional coursework to 21 credits and include classroom management. So you will see that reflected in the professional coursework and in the considerations that we are bringing today, as well as taking these pathways and sending them to our licensure partners throughout the state. And so I did convene a small group of our licensure partners in our local school systems who reviewed these pathways, and they did have some questions, but once they were answered, they were on board with the recommendations. So I just want to preface with that. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the fine arts transcript analysis pathway, and I will pause for discussion before I move on to the next pathway. Any questions before I jump in? Okay. All right, so the fine arts transcript analysis pathway, the first requirement for content knowledge. So there are four ways that an educator can meet this requirement. The first is a bachelor's degree or higher in the licensure area being sought. So again, that will be art, dance, music, or theater. And these are all PK through 12 specialty areas for teachers. Option 2 would be a bachelor's degree in any or higher in any field and a minimum of 24 semester hours of content coursework in that licensure area being sought. So this is very similar to the former transcript analysis route. So a bachelor's degree in any field or higher, and additional coursework to demonstrate content knowledge. The third option would be a bachelor's degree in a fine arts area, so one of those four areas, or a fine arts area that is related to one of those four areas. I apologize. And at least 3 years of content-related occupational experience. And so that would have to be verified through our offices, the licensure offices. And then the fourth option is a bachelor's degree or higher in any field and 3 years of content-related occupational experience and a passing score on the content assessment. So this was the concern that Ms. McGrain elevated, that was also elevated at the conclusion in our group of the work group by some of the members. And so there was a decision to pair the content assessment with occupational experience. For professional coursework, so this board had a discussion, a really robust and valuable discussion about increasing those credits from 18 to 21 semester hours, and including classroom management, as it is critical for our new teachers who don't have an education background. And so those 21 credits of MSDE, they can either be semester hours at a participating IHE or an MSD approved CPD course. And those courses are methods of teaching, introduction to special education, human growth and development, assessment, literacy in the content area, culturally responsive teaching, multicultural education, or strategies for multilingual learning. So one of the three. And the last is classroom management. The third requirement would be a test of teaching ability. And we had some discussion around these options. So the first is the passing score on a nationally recognized portfolio-based assessment, so EdTPA, which is a requirement in the state of Maryland. The second was a decision based on feedback from the board to increase the end of year effective or comparable rating from 1 year to 2 years of annual evaluations if that individual is employed in a Maryland school system, a state-operated school, or an approved non-public school. So that is a change there based on the feedback from the board. And the last option would be to complete a comprehensive induction program that is approved by MSDE and the AIB. So I will pause for discussion, for questions before we move on to the next pathway.
Good morning, this is Debbie. Can you just remind me, the 21 hours of credit, did we say 21 credits that hit all 7 of those areas?
Yes, ma'am. So it would be 3 credit hours in each.
Okay.
Areas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning. Thank you again for this wonderful work that you are leading and co-leading. A couple of questions. What is an example of a bachelor's degree in a fine arts area that's related to the area of licensure that came from the work group? Only because I think there are a lot of assumptions about what that could be, and I think it will be helpful to guide us in the conversation.
Absolutely. So for example, if an individual attends Johns Hopkins Peabody, they have music production programs. Also, another area of music, one of their degrees is in composition. So that's a related area to music.
Related. Okay, so still within sort of the umbrella of music, for example, but it wouldn't be different. Okay, that's helpful.
Got it. Yeah.
And then the second, my question is under professional coursework, I want to make sure, I believe that you said that you did share these suggestions with another group before bringing them back to us. In the public comment, I don't want to go back to literacy in the content area because I don't know if I'm a misunderstanding. It seemed that course is perceived to just be sort of, not necessarily related specifically to a discipline. I know I've taught it like 25 times. And it is a broad course. I like the course. And we talk about art in the course quite a bit, but it seems to be like in the future that there would be an ask for a course specific to the fine arts, and that this course is not high on the list of critical to art educators, fine art educators when they are just starting, is what I think I understand. And I was wondering if you could share that from it. Did have you heard that sentiment from the larger group as well? I think you said you did, but I just want to know before I just to understand what came out. I know, I believe the majority is here because that's where it's landed, but I'd love to know, that's not my background, what the specialists say about the course and its requirement.
Correct. So I will say that it was split in terms of the opinions on the work group. Some individuals felt in the work group that it was not needed for someone who was just coming into a fine arts classroom. But also there were individuals on the work group who expressed that in their classroom or in their schools and districts, that literacy was a part of the curriculum or in their school. And so they were required to integrate that into their instruction. And so at that time, there was a decision that was made by the group to drop it and keep it at 18. But after taking those recommendations back to the department, and also realizing that there's an initiative throughout the state, and it also is there are certain requirements that teachers have to make once they get a professional license. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to ensure that individuals are coming into the classroom with that knowledge up front instead of waiting until they earn a professional license and then 5 years down the line meeting those requirements. And so that's the same with special ed, and then also the culturally responsive teaching, multicultural education, and then strategies for multilingual learners. I think it's important for those educators to come in with that knowledge. And so that there was a little bit, of a decision that had to be made. And so it's understandable that Ms. McGrain did bring that up.
Okay, I actually, and I agree with what's here. I'll go on record to say that. I just wanted to know a little bit of background. And then I know that there were some recent changes in the regs in terms of this course as well. And so that'll help us, I think, going forward. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Absolutely. And I just, again, we did similar work in the PSTEB subcommittee where we looked at all these course offerings around the state. And unfortunately, again, for methods courses and those literacy courses, we're hoping that these changes will kind of spur some of our IHEs or even the development of CPD courses that are specific to arts areas. Unfortunately, they're just not accessible at this time.
Okay. We'll get on it. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do it. Ms. Bischoff.
Thank you. Hi. So, Ebony, I'm asking this question for the work we're doing with the Dean's group as well, but I'm really curious, and this is me playing catch up. The right-hand column with this menu of choices for your test of teaching ability, is this going to become an option for everybody who doesn't go through a formal program? Like, is this going to be anybody who does alternative or anybody who does transcript analysis or both by any chance? Because EdTPA, in my MAT program, EdTPA is the bear at the end. And I'm just not sure how possible that is for people not in a program. So
I can jump in.
Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
So, Maryland statute delineates exactly what options our Maryland approved program candidates have. And after the last legislative session, they are as follows. The EdTPA, because the PPAT is going away. So that's the nationally recognized assessment option. And then and if you look at the table, it's the first and it's the last. So completion of a comprehensive induction program approved by MSD and the AIB, that is in the statute. We have talked at length about the logistics there and the fact that that probably isn't going to work for most Maryland approved candidates because most likely they're in a master's program or a post baccalaureate program. They're not going to be in the program for 3 years, and the induction program is a minimum of 3 years in the statute. So probably not going to work. They also would have to have a conditional license. So they would be in the classroom. It would only be your conditionally licensed candidates. The third option that just went into the law this past session is for those institutions of higher education in Maryland that hold national accreditation, which is either CAPE or AQUEP. They're both recognized in the state. They alone can use their own developed portfolio-based assessment as an option. So for those state-approved programs that have not gone the national accreditation route, they are limited to the EdTPA at this point. So that is currently where we are, Dr. Bischoff, as far as Maryland candidates. So when you look at this, the middle option, the effective or comparable rating on 2 annual evaluations, that is limited to this pathway. And then there's other tests of teaching ability options that are currently in the regulation for our out-of-state folks. But we are bound by the statutory requirements.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, any other questions?
A couple of clarifying questions. So we discussed under professional coursework that there's not currently a classroom management course. Would that be something that is in existence already as CPD credits? Like, does that exist already? I guess is my question. It
Yes,
does.
they exist. Yes.
Okay, awesome. And then my other question, just from BTU, they're really happy with all of the work that we've done, and they really appreciated the summary and agree that a transcript pathway is appropriate for these groups of people. So so that's good news. They just wanted to confirm it can be 2 effective evaluations out of any 5 years during the conditional period. Is that how we're looking at this? Okay,
yes,
perfect. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, feel free to continue.
Okay. Kelly, are you going to share? I think it.
Can you see my screen?
I can't.
Oh, let me reshare.
I'm sorry. Maybe it was just me.
About now?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're moving on to the general secondary education transcript analysis pathway. So this work came out of the PSTEB subcommittee that worked looking at alternative pathways for content area experts. And so I want to preface this by saying again, this pathway is for individuals who would be teaching in general secondary, so 7 through 12 areas only. So no early childhood, no elementary, just our secondary teachers. So the first requirement for content knowledge is a bachelor's degree or higher in the licensure area being sought. The second option is a bachelor's degree or higher in any field, and again, a minimum of 24 semester hours of content coursework in the licensure area sought. So a degree and the additional coursework. And the third option is a bachelor's degree or higher in any field with 3 years of content-related occupational experience and a passing score on a content assessment. The second requirement for professional coursework is aligned to the fine arts transcript analysis pathway. So again, 21 semester hours of credit or MSDE approved CPDs. And they include methods of teaching, introduction to special education, human growth and development, assessment, literacy in the content area, culturally responsive teaching, multicultural education, or strategies for multilingual learners, and classroom management. And finally, the test of teaching ability, the same 3 options. So a passing score on a nationally recognized portfolio assessment, the EdTPA, an effective or comparable rating on 2 annual evaluations from Maryland local school system, a state-operated school, or an approved non-public school. And the third option would be completion of a comprehensive induction program approved by the department and the AIB. So I'll pause for questions.
I have another question. As far as the induction program, I think again, just kind of a clarifying question about like the rigor of that requirement as opposed to the other two. I don't know if anybody with a little more knowledge can just speak to that. That one seems like on its face, to me, it seems like an easier route. And so I just am curious about if someone can speak to the rigor of that compared to like say the EdTPA.
I'm happy to speak to it. So the statute, this is language from Maryland statute, and the statute defines what needs to go into the induction program. It is above and beyond what our current induction regulations require. However, the induction regulations that we're currently promulgating are very much in alignment with the statutory requirements and in fact go beyond that. So I would argue that if the induction regulations are passed as they are in their current form, this is a very rigorous option. It's a minimum of 3 years. It has to be aligned to the in-task standards, which are the same standards that we require our teacher preparation programs to align to. There are several sets of standards that they have to align to, actually. There's a minimum number of mentoring minutes that are required per marking period. It's 400. There's a lot of different professional development that's called out in specific areas. So I actually think personally that out of these 3 options, it is the most rigorous.
Well, there you go. Thank you.
Ms. Scordalis?
Yes, I have a question. So I guess I'm thinking about this and I'm saying, okay, general secondary. So we're talking, for instance, like a social studies certification, right? Okay. So then I'm looking at, so with like social studies, that's my field. So it says like you don't really ever get a degree in social studies unless you do social studies education, right? And so like when we're saying a degree, a bachelor's degree in the area being sought, that could be economics, it could be history, it could be geography, right? So then when you go down to the next part where it says any field, so then we're talking that could be I have a degree in literature, right? And then I'm going to get these 24 semester hours. Are they defined as like, because I know that when I actually did a credit count way back in the day, right? And if I remember correctly, I had to have like 2 US histories, 1 world, an economics class. So is that also what we're doing here? Would they be defined? No. Okay.
No, they would not. And our licensure specialists and our partners in our districts are trained to look at specific related coursework. So they are aware of what is related and what would count as content coursework. So we're, making sure that that individual is coming in with foundational content knowledge.
But I think Sandy brings up a great point, and I do want to be transparent that as written, that means that an individual could come to the table with 24 semester hours in geography.
Correct.
And not have the combination of the economics and the history, and which is how the old transcript analysis was written when we had a transcript analysis regulation for a different one for every single content area.
Because teaching social studies, I mean, I could be put in US history, I could be put in world, and if I have all geography and you put me in economics, I don't have any background in economics. So
yeah, you're correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for elevating that point. Any other questions? Okay. moving on to our last pathway. So in our previous meeting in June, we didn't get a chance to discuss this pathway in depth. So this is really going to be our first time talking about this, but in addition to the transcript analysis pathway for general secondary content areas, the subcommittee also explored an alternative pathway for individuals who have advanced degrees in expertise in a content area. And so again, this would be limited to our secondary content areas, but these individuals would have post-secondary teaching experience. And so for content knowledge, the requirement would be a master's degree or higher in the licensure area being sought. So it could be a terminal degree as well. The professional experience. So here we don't have coursework because this is not a transcript analysis pathway, but we would just be looking at experience because this is an occupational experience pathway. So they would have to verify 3 years of full-time satisfactory teaching experience at an IHE in the licensure area being sought. And then the final requirement is the test of teaching ability, and we still have the same 3 options. So a passing score on a nationally recognized portfolio-based assessment, an effective or comparable rating on 2 annual evaluations if they are employed by a Maryland school district, a state-operated school, or an approved non-public school. And the last option would be completion of a comprehensive induction program approved by MSDE and the AIB. So this is brand new. It is not something we've done in the past, but again, these will be individuals who are coming out of our IHEs. They have advanced degrees in a content area, and they have experience teaching at the post-secondary level. And so this is a way for them to access the teaching profession in our pre-K through 12 classrooms.
And just to add one more point, the teaching experience needs to be in that content area.
Yes.
So everything has to align.
So we're waiving the content assessment for this one specifically because of the occupational experience, the master's degree at an IHE. So, okay, thank you.
I had a question. Is there sort of an assumption here that if you've taught for 3 years at an IHE and you're moving into a public school, that you have an adequate understanding of the needs of special education students, multi-language learners, and so forth? Because to me, there's a potential that may, and again, I don't know, that's why I'm asking, but it seems like the environment might be a little bit different than it might be in higher ed. In other words, the array of special education students that a public school teacher is going to run into, classroom management issues, the higher concentration of multi-language learners, that might be a very different environment than what one might be seeing at, say, a 4-year college. So is there the assumption, one, is that a reasonable assumption to make? And 2, is there assumption that they actually will have the skills necessary to do that simply because they're teaching at an IHE? That's my question.
Yeah.
And I mean no disrespect to anybody at an IHE. I'm just saying the environment, teaching at both, because I'm an adjunct for one, and I certainly teach high school, and boy, are they 2 different environments. So
Correct.
that's where my question's coming from.
Yeah, and I'll open it up for anyone who is on that subcommittee who wants to speak about that, because we did talk about that. Dr. Shockley, were you going to say something? I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, I was just thinking about just trying to look up my notes that I had for this meeting, and remembering that I believe that because of the requirements, for example, of the EdTPA, there are many places where you have to demonstrate capacity and pedagogical knowledge that I believe addressed concerns about at least pedagogy and also differentiation, exceptional learners. And then Kelly just talked about the second option with the induction and what that would, the third, and what that would suggest and also require. So those are some of the parts of the conversation that I recall that answer. But to your point, as a former middle and high school teacher and college professor, yes, they are different. And so the point well taken. I believe that the tests of teaching ability category are meant to offer some examples of how someone would need to demonstrate proficiency in those areas. And it was a way to bring in another audience, if you will, or route to our PK-12 students, or namely, I believe this will be secondary.
Yeah, this will be secondary, but yes.
Because they're, older and almost ready for college. So not perfect, by far, but certainly opportunities to demonstrate is what where the conversation landed. So I love this question.
Thanks, Dr. Shockley. That addressed my concern. I appreciate that. I can see that.
Thank you so much, Ebony. Hit the nail right on the head.
All right. Further questions, comments?
I wanted to just say that that doesn't mean that, the available coursework that MSD offers couldn't land here. These are recommendations. So I was just answering your question, Darren. I hope I didn't that didn't mean that I wasn't. I'm certainly open to comments about other criteria for post-secondary faculty. I just wanted that to be clear. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I thought it was a great answer to the question, because when I look at the test of teaching ability, those do seem to address that issue. Like that would show up there. So to my mind, that made perfect sense. All right. Other questions, comments, Joyce, concerns? All right. Thank you so much for that presentation. I really do appreciate that. And of course, that's written out in the COMAR section as well, including the induction program, which is highlighted in yellow at the very end that you saw on the other sheet. But thank you for walking us through that, Ms. Fitzpatrick. That was a great presentation.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, and certainly a good representation of all the work that's gone into this too. And I love how this really did, I think, address a lot of the concerns that came up in our previous discussion at the last meeting. All right, so Kelly, help me out with this. This is my thought. You kind of guide me here if I'm not on the right page here. My thought is probably at this point, take this back to our representative groups, sort of show it to them, get their input on it as well, and then are we thinking of maybe asking about adopting this at our next meeting?
So we would need to ask permission to publish first.
Right, permission to publish is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if it sounds like the discussion has been had, we weren't sure, how much discussion was gonna take place today. But I see no reason why we shouldn't bring it back next month. If you want another month to talk with your constituents, we can certainly bring it back in August and with a request to publish for public comment. And then at that point, it would also go to the State Board of Education and we would make the same request.
All right. Well, that's kind of what I was thinking as well. Let me just get a feel here for the group before we go on. Is there anybody at this point right now, and you're not boxing yourself into a corner, you can change your mind, but right now at this point, looking at the recommendations, is there anybody who has any major concerns about what they're saying or concerns that would keep them from being supportive? Because if there are, I think we need to sort of get that on the table to help us move forward. So is there anybody who has any concerns about what has been presented now? Okay, just practicing some wait time here while you're thinking about it. All right, I think that's pretty good. And that's a testament to the good work that went into this. All right, so saying no concerns, I think that's probably the best thing to do now. So let's take this back to our constituent group, share with it, get a little bit of opinion and so forth. And then I think, Kelly, we can put that on the agenda for permission to publish and then kick it over to the State Board. All right, is there anybody who would see differently on that issue? All right, again, great job of addressing the concerns that came up at the previous meeting, because that left me kind of wondering, like, what are we going to do from here? And I think that addressed almost all of our concerns. So Excellent job. All right. Is there any other comment on this part of the meeting before we move on? All right, looks great. So now that brings us to setting the August agenda. So we already have the permission to publish for the arts regulations. Kelly, what else do you have in mind for the next meeting? Did you have anything? I know we chatted about this a little bit previously.
Yes, so I'm actually I'm waiting to finalize. We may be able to do the in-district pathway presentation in August. We're partnering with an LEA, so we need to be mindful of their availability. So either August or September, but I am hopeful that it can be August. If so, I will include it. If not, we'll have it in September.
Okay, that sounds good. Anything else? And of course, we would do the public comments, say board update, and so forth. Approval of meetings from this meeting, communications, and the standard items that would generally go on. All right, yeah, if we could have that, that's great. But I realized August can be a pretty challenging time as school systems start to rev back up again and everybody's trying to get ready. I'm thrilled that so many of you were able to make it to this July meeting because I realize you're in the middle of all kinds of stuff in the summer, vacations and so forth. So I appreciate you all coming. It's great. All right, anything else as a suggestion for the August agenda? All right, well, if I'm not mistaken, I think I've checked off everything we were supposed to do today with plenty of time to spare. So is there anybody else who has anything to add for the meeting today? Kelly, do you have anything? Did we do it all?
This might be a record.
And you know what? I even started on time, and I never start on time. I've broken my own record of having never started a meeting on time, and I think I did it. This is one for the books. All right. If there's anything else for the good of the group before we adjourn? All right, then without objection, I will call our July 10th meeting adjourned. Have a wonderful summer, and don't forget our next meeting will be in person. And if possible, I would like to see more of us try and come back into the actual meeting space as opposed to trying to do this online, because it's a little bit harder to juggle both. So if you can possibly come into the next meeting, that would be appreciated. So next meeting will be in person, of course, with the online option as well, but meeting in person is preferable. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your summer. Be sure and get some good time and relaxing with family and friends and so forth. And I look forward to seeing everybody in August again. All right. Thank you all.
Oh, just a moment.
Sure.
In August? I'm sorry. Can you just review what date in August we're coming back?
Yeah, that's a good point. Kelly, do you have that?
Yep, let me look real quick.
Putting you on the spot.
7?
7.
Okay, so that's August 7th.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. Any other questions, comments? All right, everyone. I will see you in August. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of the day.